there was just so much that hadn't been explored. I felt like it was worthy of a book to try to understand what jellyfish are and how come they're so amazing. It wasn't just a short article. There was too much to talk about.
In Stung, I was reading and it said that scientists have experimented on shell creatures more than non-shell creatures, but non-shell creatures have been around
Right.
longer.
That's right. And there might even be more non-shelled creatures than shelled creatures. The reason is because when we explored the ocean in the 20th century, in the 1900s, when we really started exploring the ocean, we did it using motorboats with nets and big, huge winches. And so we go out in the ocean and drop these big nets in, and then go through the ocean really fast, and then pull those nets up really fast, and then dump everything that came up in those nets on the back of a boat and start sorting through it and saying, okay, well, that's what's in the ocean. But jellyfish aren't going to get caught that way. And so we destroyed our baseline for understanding jellyfish. In fact, scientists told me that they would even pour bleach on the back of whatever came up on the back of the boat to dissolve away the jellyfish so they wouldn't get stung.
And also, you can do more experiments, I feel like, on shell creatures because they have more of that protection.
Yeah, I mean, they just are easier to catch,
Yeah.
basically. In order to catch a jellyfish, you have to go down with a scuba gear, and you have to take a jar and carefully collect it, and then take it up, one by one. It's very difficult to collect jellyfish compared to collecting shelled things. In fact, in the 1900s, more jellyfish were named. 1900 to 1910, more jellyfish were named and described than the rest of the 20th century, because that was before motors really came to be, and people were going out with sailboats and going through the water slowly and using dip nets to get whatever they could. So they were seeing more jellyfish then, and then they stopped seeing them for like the next 50 or 75 years.
So, I don't remember the name, but the jellyfish art people.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Jellyfish tank people.
The jellyfish tank people, yeah.
Do they have a more efficient process for catching those jellyfish?
So they're trying to breed them.
Breed them.
Mm-hmm. That's what they're trying to do, and I think they're getting pretty good at breeding them. So the jellyfish art person, Alex, who I talked to in San Francisco in the book, he's actually out of the business now. It was too hard of a business to be in, and he sold his intellectual property, his business basically, to a group in Florida who are doing that now. And so it's a harder thing than you think, I think, to make a business out of jellyfish. They're just tricky. And so I think that group has redesigned the tank, so that, because the jellyfish tank that I bought was a death trap. It was terrible. So they've redesigned it, and they're putting together a breeding program so that they can do it without having to go out in the ocean and collect jellyfish. Yeah. It wasn't as easy as Alex thought it was going to be. Yeah.
Well, 5-year-old sister actually has a question for you.
Okay.
How did you find out that jellyfish existed?
How did I find out jellyfish existed at all? I don't know the answer to that question. I don't have a good answer. I must have been a kid.
Were you assigned the National Geographic article?
I was supposed to fact check it.
Okay.
So I didn't write it. I was just a fact checker on it.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote the captions. I was, kind of low on the pay scale.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew about, I was a marine biologist, so I knew about jellyfish, and I saw them when I would be swimming and diving. But I'm just trying to think of the first jellyfish I ever knew about. I can't remember. I tried to find the first jellyfish I ever saw and took a picture of when I was working on the book, and I found an old underwater camera picture I took of a jellyfish in Puget Sound. There's a marine lab there called Friday Harbor Labs, and I took a picture of the compass jellyfish there.
Oh yeah.
And that's the one that is bioluminescent, or really bioluminescent. There, a lot of them are, but that one's really. So that's the first one I know of, but that I like have documentation of, but I don't know how I knew that they existed. Like, yeah. Do you know how you found out they existed? Yeah, right? It's
they're
just like
a part of like
the world. Yeah. I mean, like SpongeBob goes jellyfishing.
Alright, you talked about that in the book.
Yeah.
I don't watch SpongeBob, so
But it might have, like, you probably saw a picture of him with his net. I don't know. I don't know how. I don't know. It's hard
she
to know.
made this little song while
She
we were in the
did?
car. She was
Oh.
like, jellyfish swimming through the sea. I have lots of polyps.
That is so cute. I love that. You can use that as a theme song for your jellyfish podcast.
How did you become a marine biologist? How did you get into that?
That was in my book too, but
Okay, sorry, I
no,
haven't read
that's
the book.
okay.
I've
No.
just used the text,
Yeah, I was a math. I studied math in college,
Okay.
but I took a semester abroad, and I went to Israel. And I was really miserable on my semester abroad. I was like, what am I doing here? This isn't, Israel was a really difficult place for me at the time because a lot of the Israelis who were my age, well, all the Israelis who were my age had to go into the army.
Oh, right.
So they thought that someone who could just go to college without having to go to the army, had a pretty easy time of it. And so there was it was hard to make friends. And then I saw this, just sign on the wall at the university, marine ecology course in Eilat, which is down in the southern part of Israel. Sign up here. So I was like, yes, that sounds great. Get me I'm so miserable. So I went, and it was just I don't know. Have you gone by the coral reef before? You don't like the water?
I like it, but I also
No.
Sure,
Yeah. Well, it helps, I'd say, to put on a wetsuit and gloves and booties and a mask, because then you do feel protected from things that could hurt you. Is that it? It's not that.
Like the creatures.
Oh, it's
just
not the creatures.
water.
The water.
It's like I have this crazy fear of drowning.
Okay. Yeah. Well, the wetsuit is buoyant, so
Yeah.
it holds you up.
Yeah. If the wetsuit's buoyant, then how do you go?
You have to
down?
put weights on. So you could just not put weights on.
Okay. Just be like.
Yeah, you have to put weights on, and you have to kind of really aim yourself down so that the weights can kind of take over and pull you down a little bit. But then once you push off of bottom, you pop right back up. That's for snorkeling. So you have. Anyway, I stuck my face in the water in Israel, in the Red Sea, and I was like, whoa, we live on the same planet with all of that? And it was I couldn't believe it. That was number one. And number two, in the lectures later on that week, the professor was talking about the way that different animals reproduce on the reef. And there are these equations for how many of different kinds of animals we should expect to see based on the reproductive strategies. Some, like us, we're called R strategists. I'm sorry, I'm going to screw it up. It's been years since I've thought about this. There's R strategists and K strategists, and I think the R strategists are the ones that make a ton of eggs, like the coral do. And they don't put any effort into making sure any of those eggs survive. They just throw them off onto the reef. And then there's cave biologists like us, which make very few eggs, but we put a lot of effort into making sure our offspring survive. And there's these equations which predict how many of these different species you should expect to see in an ecosystem. And I was like, oh my gosh, equations, because I was a math major. But it applied to the real world, and you could suddenly use math to understand the world in this way that I was like, this is cool. I know. So I suddenly felt like my math had a purpose that made sense in the environment, and that's how I really got into marine biology. Yeah. So you like math also?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, I
It's
liked.
like, I have nothing to do